So today we're going to talk about how much solar power you need in your RV in whatever situation you're going to be doing. So one situation is you're not going to really be using solar out in the campground area. You just want to keep your batteries maintained at the wherever you're storing your RV at. That way you don't have to have it plugged in. In that case, you don't need anything massive powerful at all. Just a simple low, 50 watt or 100 watt solar power system will be just fine. 20 amp PWM solar charge controller, something low, like for example, even lower than this. You don't need something this high. This is a 200 watt, but 100 watt you're fine. It'll maintain your batteries. It'll keep everything charged up. Now if you're going camping and you don't need to run the air conditioner, so that's your level of intent, what you're needing to do. You want to go out there, you want to watch TV with the kids sometimes, with the Blu-ray or whatever, run everything else, the fans, charge all your devices, and you are not camping in a tree covered area, then this system right here is perfectly fine for that. This 200 watts and a let me show you the other thing, this 140 amp hour lithium ion battery. So the 200 watt kit and the 140 amp hour lithium battery will cover you constantly. It'll keep everything charged up. You can charge all your devices, your kids' devices, in the middle of the night when you need to keep your kids busy. They can watch TV with a Blu-ray player, and I say Blu-ray player because you may not have internet where you're at. So I always bring a couple Blu-rays and the kids are happy. So 140 amp hour battery with a 200 watt charge kit, this one right here, has a PWM charge controller. It's totally fine. Now if you're in a tree covered area like a campground, then you need pretty much the same thing, except for I would probably switch out the PWM charge controller with an MPPT charge controller, unless your camping times are like 2-3 days. If you're 2 or 3 days camping out, then the original setup with this 200 watt and the PWM and the 140 amp hour is just fine. But if you're going more than 3 days and you're camped out in a tree covered area, then you need a MPPT charge controller. This one right here would be a really good charge controller for that situation. And borderline, you might even need one extra 100 watt panel for your system. But again, you could probably go out there and test this out to see if it's working for you first. And this would only be if you're staying out there more than 3 days in a tree covered area. If it's not a tree covered area, then this kit handles pretty much everything. You're fine with that. Now if you have a larger RV, you probably would need more power. So in that case, you may need to double this thing up. You may need a 400 watt charging system, and it just depends. Like my RV is 20 feet long, so the smaller kit is perfectly fine for mine. It's 20 feet long. Everybody's, there's a bunk bed set up, seating area, so this pretty much handles for my situation. If you're in a larger RV and you're doing the same thing, you may need the 400 watt because maybe you have more devices. Like I said, it depends on how many devices you're running and what you're running. So my situation, 20-foot RV, this is the perfect setup. I'm under tree covered areas a lot of times when I camp, so I'm borderline needing that MPPT charge controller because I'm over 3 days sometimes, so it's pushing it. I'm seeing that my power really get low on the 3rd day being in the tree covered area. So I'm debating on it. That's $100. That's a a good chunk of change that you're gonna have to pay out for that. If you want air conditioning, that's a different story. If you're doing air conditioning, I'm going to straight up say, and this air conditioning is on solar, of course, I'm going to straight up say you need an MPPT charge controller. You need really a minimum of 600 watts of power. So this plus another 200 watts of power. So minimum 600, maybe 800, but 600 probably do you. And you need these batteries. I'm going to say you need 3 of these. You're going to need, probably 450 amp hours of power to run the air conditioner, and you're not going to be able to run the air conditioner non-stop with that. You're going to be able to run it, those times when you come into the RV and you want to cool off, and of course, the nighttime hours, you're going to be able to run it. So that's pretty much when you're going to be running this thing. You're only going to be able to run certain air conditioners too. So unless you have a massive battery pack and you're investing in thousands of watts of solar power on your roof, which is a lot of money, you're not going to be able to run your main air conditioner off of that. So if if you have the money to buy tons of these batteries and put 2,000 watts of power on your roof, then yeah, go for that, because then you can just plug it up to your main system, and you got to have a system changer in your RV. So there's just a lot of money involved with running your main air conditioner off of batteries. So what I would suggest is 3 of these batteries, about 600 watts of power, of solar power, and then you can go up to 800 if you needed it. MPPT charge controller, and I would suggest one of these air conditioners. These ones, there's 4 different types I'm going to show you. 3 of them are 110 volt system ones, so they are going to lose a little because of your inverter, so power drainage. But all of these are inverter air conditioners, so they use a lot less power. This one is very convenient. It's low BTU, so you're probably only going to get away with running this thing in a maybe 18-20 foot you're pushing for a 20-foot camper, but probably an 18-foot camper would be your limit, because it's 6,500 BTU, maybe even 17 foot, but it's very convenient for installing. So you can see this ribbon thing here, and you can put it in a window. You can so it just has a lot of options because of this ribbon. You can mount this thing in different ways. It doesn't have to be mounted up here. It can be mounted low. You can see there. There's just a lot of options to mount this thing, and this only uses 700 watts of power, which for an air conditioner is low. And because it's an inverter one, it will go to a lower wattage of use when you start getting into the cooling temperatures. So it's a really good option, low wattage of use. And it's the same with this one too. This one is just it's a house residential one that's the U goes down. So it gives you a different option to mount things. But again, this is 700 watts. This one is 700 watts of power usage. And because it has the U going down, they're quiet. That's another benefit about all these. All these are really quiet, low decibels. So this thing ain't gonna be humming in your ear when you're going to sleep. The one that I have in my house is actually this one. It's 10,000 BTU, and I think they even have they have an 8,000. That's the one I have in my house at 8,000 BTU. I have this one in my office upstairs, and the office, I'm going to say, is like probably 200 square feet of space in there, so it's a big room. But this thing cools it easy. So 350 square feet, I say no problem. It can do it. This thing just hums along. It's quiet, very quiet. And again, this thing takes 600 watts of power, and it's reported. Let me see. I can show you what people are saying about it. Let me see. Watts. Let's look up the review. Yeah, 600 watts of power. This is the 10,000 BTU unit, so it's a little bigger even, because the one I was using is an 8,000 BTU unit, and it uses 111 watts at low compressor speeds. So once you reach your temperature, this is a stretch here, but I bet once you reach to your temperatures, you're going to see 200, 250 watts of usage once you hit, you know, the cool temperature that you want to be at. Just the fan is 13 watts, but why use an air conditioner for just the fan? This is probably the most efficient air conditioner I've seen out there. And like I said, I use this in my office and it works great. There's also, the most efficient is of course a 12 volt direct air conditioner. This air conditioner runs on 12 volts of power. It doesn't have an inverter for loss, so it runs 12 volts. This one runs, I want to say this one was a 600 watt, so it's a really good system. The issue with this one is it requires a lot more in hooking this thing up. It requires, you know, you gotta hook these lines to your wall, you gotta mount the interior, exterior units, you need to have this thing charged, which, you know, when you go to an automotive place, you're gonna get charged 100, maybe 250 bucks to have this thing charged up with the Freon. So because of two units separated, they need to be hooked up together and then vacuumed down. So there's an additional 200 bucks maybe in cost for charging this thing up with Freon. So that $760 now becomes $960. It's a good option because it is 12 volt. You're going to get a very high efficiency out of this, and so the efficiency rating alone is going to be really, really nice. And it's a, you know, it's a little cleaner install because, you know, you can mount this thing. There's a lot of places you can mount this unit to because it has a longer cable. I think it's a 10-foot cable for the interior and the exterior units. So there's a lot more. Let me see if it shows the cable. It doesn't show it. There's a roof mounted version of it, but like I said, this cable is 10 feet long, and I think you can even order a longer one. 10 feet's pretty long, but it's just it gives you a nice cleaner install rather than just throwing a window air conditioner in. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to get this unit. It's the one I'm leaning towards because we actually use this in the house. Very low wattage, very cold. This thing gets super cold, and it's quiet, super quiet, and it's not going to require a massive installation for me. So that's the one I'm leaning towards, you know, for air conditioning with solar. So I think that pretty much wraps everything up. This these are your options, and of course this isn't your only option. This is Renogy. There's Eco-Worthy, which is a little bit lower, not much lower, but a little bit lower on the cost. Renogy's, of course, you know, the main brand pretty much out there, so they're very well known. Eco-Worthy is well known too. I've seen both of these. I got an Eco-Worthy on my RV right now, and it's been really good. No problems at all with it. And the reason why I tell everybody to get this battery is I've been using this battery. It's great. It holds a charge great. It's pretty much, it's a battery. It works exactly like every other battery out there. It's not cheap. It's in the mid area. It's not an expensive thing, and I know it's $367, but it's, compared to the other ones out there, this is a lot cheaper, and it's a good quality. That's the difference. I've been running this thing for over a year, and it just keeps chugging along, and it works great. So that's the reason why I steer people towards this one. It's I just think it's a good battery. Oh, and the main things I steer people towards is lower cost but high quality product. That's my main goal, is the thing I want people to use, because you don't need to buy, you know, the high end item. with the extra bells and whistles that you don't need when you can buy this item that's it's not the lowest one, because you don't want the lowest one, they're junk, but this is the lower model that is of high quality. So that's it. Please subscribe. You guys make my channel happen, and we'll see you next episode.